Geez, I'm not paying attention. My thoughts are all over the place today. Chapter 7, Part 1. This is that leader member exchange and followership chapter. And this is where we get tongue tied with the dyadic and vertical and leader member exchange and all that good stuff. Basically, all they're talking about is the relationship, the one-on-one relationship between the leader and the follower. Is it good or is it bad? Is it somewhere in between? Excuse me, I'm really starting to lose my voice. I'm trying to crank out the last of these videos. So, for example, the leader member exchange theory, just we know statistically that the better your relationship is with your boss, the more likely it is that you won't quit. Like I've said to you before, I don't remember quitting almost any job. I quit bosses, I quit leaders. Now, I'm not very tolerant that way. I can do a lot of jobs, a lot of people I'm not going to work for. So they talk about the vertical dyadic linkage theory, a bunch of fancy pants words, and all that means is we're talking about the leader member relationship in a vertical axis, meaning this is the leader, this is the follower, right? And how we kind of transitioned into this thinking of maybe we're more inclined to have a leader membership exchange theory is more along this axis here instead of just strictly from top down. So there's kind of been a move from one to the other. And a dyad, as you can see, is defined as basically a pair of relations or relationships. So that's why we're specific about saying this is a one-on-one relationship between you and your boss. It's not your team. It's not the whole organization. So basically, it's just talking about, well, how well do you get along with your boss? So if you were to put this on a continuum, one is like, well, I see him once in a while, but I've never really had an exchange with them. To, yeah, I have a really good, strong working relationship. I've talked to them many times. They know my first name, blah blah blah, or whatever it is. Uh, that's a big span, isn't it? So when you ask yourself, how well do you get along with your boss? Where are you on that continuum, right? And then when we look at the dyadic relationship as well, are you part of an in-group or an out-group? And you guys are going to do these self-assessments in the book, but you're also going to be doing that as part of your one of the project assignments. So are you part of the in-group or a part of the out-group? Now, the in-group does have special, I don't like to use the word favors, but some special things happen if you're in the in-group, and that may not happen for you in the out group. Now, it's not always a bad thing to be in the out group, right? It doesn't mean that that your bosses are playing any kind of favoritism at all. It might just be that you have a very strong, solid, contractual type working relationship with your boss, and that's about it, really. And that's not a bad thing. But for most of us, we start looking at that along the lines of that leader member exchange. That's why we're using the word exchange now when they're kind of moving away from that dyadic relationship, looking at that theory and moving to this theory, because there is an exchange. There's a give and take between these two people, right? So the leader member exchange, or the LMX, I'm just going to say that because I can't keep saying that before I get too tongue tied, is really up in the ante here. We're up in the ante and really looking at, what happens when we have a good relation or a poor relationship, with our boss. So if you look at some of the outcomes, the higher the quality of the relationship, the more that, I'll just show you the list or talk about the list that they give us here. Experience positive outcomes such as higher job satisfaction, better performance, lower turnover rates, greater commitment, greater creativity, innovation, organizational citizenship, right? And the opposite can kind of happen if you don't have a good quality relationship. Then they talk about those different factors that affect. Well, before I go on to that, I think on concept application 7-2, I don't think I asked you guys to do that one. But to kind of cement this idea of what the difference is, not that it really matters all that much to us, but if you look at number 6 there, or the concept application 7-2, the notion that leaders do not interact with all followers equally, but rather focus on the formation of relationships that vary in quality, that's a leader member exchange theory type thing, because it's talking about the quality. Versus if you go down to like the little number 8, the hierarchical relationship in which the leader follower dyad or pairs, these pair relationship develops, that's definitely the dyadic type linkage. So what are the kinds of factors that influence these relationships? There's really two basic things: the role of the leader, right, and the role of the follower, because it's between two people, right? And they refer to these things like organizational citizenship behavior, right? They define it as this individual behavior that is discretionary, not directly or explicitly recognized by the formal reward system. And that in the aggregate promotes the effective functioning of the organization. So it means that the more we all get along, the better the organization runs, really, right? And as far as the role of the leader goes, are they actively and openly seeking out good relationships with people? Do they care? Are they worried about these kinds of things? And if they are, then you generally end up working for people you really enjoy working for. And I've had the privilege of working for a few people like that. For someone who's had as many jobs as I've had, though, it's pretty rare. I can name 3 off the top of my head right now out of, oh my gosh, how many bosses have I had? I've had at least 17 different jobs in my life. Like I said, I don't stay long if I don't have a good relationship. But when you do, you know it. It's like you don't know what that means until you see it, right? It's like the work climate. You feel it's very trustworthy. It's very honest. You feel respected. You feel like it's open. These are the folks you kind of would walk through fire for, right? And then the role of the follower, again, what are you putting into this? Are you open to all of this? Are you the crab apple who's always complaining about their boss or whatever? Or are you taking, making active pains to try to get along with people, make their life a little easier? Now this is not about liking one another either. Don't confuse this with being, work buddies kind of thing, which can and does happen. But a really responsible leader and a responsible follower won't let it cross those lines of expectations, right? So that, like playing favorites, so to speak. So if you're as the part of that role of the follower, they give us some ideas on how you can manage this. So impression management is one of them. Now remember, there's two sides to every story, right? So impression management can be a good thing or a bad thing. Are you just sort of creating this persona, and sort of ingratiation is another tactic? Are you doing all of this just to sort of get on the good side of your boss, but you really don't care how it affects the organization? You're just doing it for yourself because you want to try to get a better gig, right? You want to get better job, promotion, whatever. So we can use these things for the wrong way. But hopefully you're not that kind of person, right? That when you talk about impression management, you really are making an effort to create a favorable image, and of course you do gain benefits from that, but that's not your complete ulterior motive, put it that way, right? So they divide it up in, like, is it performance driven motive or is it impression driven motive? The performance driven motive is the follower's genuine attempt to seek information from the leader that'll help improve their work performance and things like that. The impression driven person, that's the other one, right? They're just doing it so they appear to be better. Oh, I know lots of people like that. I know lots of people that I've sat in meetings and listened to them lie through their teeth about all the things they're doing. And those of us that work with them, we know better, right? But they're really selling it to the boss, right? Ingratiation, again, are you ingratiating yourself with the boss for the right reasons? And then self-promotion. It's okay to self-promote. It's okay to say, listen, this is what I've worked on. This is what I've accomplished, because most of us want to move up in our organization, right? But they refer to it here as the effort to appear competent and dependable. Well, hopefully it's not to just appear competent and dependable. Hopefully you are. You're not like that other person, these other people that I know, right? Now, the benefits, we do see benefits, right? We look at, and the list some of the things they share with us here: greater motivation, job performance, lower staff turnovers, higher performance ratings, and things like that for evaluations. And again, that can be, then you're helping the follower's career, that you might get promotions because you're being recommended. You might get a pay raise, right? Maybe you get some little special favors like a better or bigger office or something, right? And the other things too is that, but there's this, again, this is why it's called an exchange theory. This is a two-way street. So if you're going to get all that, your boss is expecting some stuff too, right? They're expecting, and the book just gives us a few to pick from here, being loyal to them. And if you're not, you're going to fall from their good graces pretty quickly. Be more committed to the task objectives, work harder, maybe work longer hours, right? Maybe take on some of their administrative duties, right? It's an exchange here, right? And in essence, you're gaining that social capital you need to keep that a positive relationship. Now, there's a lot of criticisms about this theory. We talk about it because we all know that there are in groups and out groups, right? We know some of this is pretty legitimate. You can read the criticisms, but some of it is mainly because it's solely from the perspective of the follower, right? Which means things are pretty one-sided. And what we think is going on may not be what anybody else thinks is going on. But the price that we might pay, and this is the other thing about this theory, is the outgroup members not getting maybe the same favors, and certain biases do develop, right? Whether the leader realizes it or not. So to be very, very careful about how much we value this, but I don't say throw it away either. Now that's part one. When I get back with part two, we'll take on this whole idea of followership. I might have to come at a later date if I can't get my voice back. I'll go take a lozenge and I'll kind of come back. Bye.